And now on the line is Sheila Gilheany. Sheila is the CEO of Alcohol Action Ireland. Welcome back to Near FM, Sheila.
Thanks very much for having me on, Darren.
Okay, Sheila, I last spoke to you on Near FM in the beginning of last month, January, and in that interview we spoke about how the Minister for Health, Stephen Donnelly, had still not enacted the section of the Public Health Alcohol Act in respect of alcohol adverts on television. We are going to talk today about the same overall issue of alcohol advertising, especially the marketing of zero alcohol drinks by alcohol companies in replace of regular alcohol drinks. First of all, Sheila, can you tell me, is there any update from your dealings with Minister for Health Stephen Donnelly as to when he will enact the section of the Public Health Alcohol Act that deals with regular alcohol adverts on television?
So all we have had recently from the Minister, there's a couple of things. There was a PQ that was responded to back in January, and the Minister repeated a comment that he has made quite a number of times, saying that the particular section in relation to the broadcast watershed won't be implemented until they have concluded satisfactorily consultations with the Broadcasting Authority of Ireland. And we made a freedom of information request with the BAI on this, and we're quite frustrated because we can see from the documentation that we got that the last meeting with the BAI was held over a year ago, and yet we're still hearing from the Minister that about this need for ongoing consultation. So we really would be questioning what is the purpose of this consultation, and really why can't they go ahead and just implement this quite straightforward piece of legislation.
Okay, we'll come back to that in a few minutes. I know this is all related to one another, but the restrictions on alcohol advertising on public transport and in relation to sport have already officially come in, haven't they?
Yes, they have. So there's a number of different measures that actually are already in place around alcohol advertising, and that includes a prohibition on alcohol ads on public transport, on outdoor ads close to schools within 200 metres, and also on the field of play during sporting matches.
Okay, and this is the main reason I got in touch with you for this interview today. Even though that part of the Act is in force, you and Alcohol Action Ireland and many other public health advocates are not happy with how it's working now, aren't you?
No, we're not, because what we can see is that in those areas that I've just outlined, that while you won't see alcohol advertising as such, you will see the advertising of zero alcohol brands with using identical branding to their alcohol equivalents. And we would really see that this is a means of trying to get around, the restrictions that were there. And these are fairly minimal restrictions to start off, so, to find alcohol advertising, and it is essentially alcohol advertising because of the way that they're using identical branding in these areas, we would say is certainly a contravention of the spirit, if not the actual letter of the law. And in fact, we would probably say that it is a contravention in terms of the letter of the law as well.
Yeah, I'm not big into sports in general, but I watched a couple of minutes of the rugby last week, and I really found it striking that the advertisement for Guinness Zero was over the pitch and at the side of the pitch. It really is very blatant, I think, isn't it? Do you think?
I do think so. I really do think, because when you look at what the actual restriction were, like the alcohol advertising can still continue on hoardings around the sides of the stadium or around the sides of the pitch. There is no prohibition on the actual sponsorship of the championships or any other activity by alcohol companies. The single restriction that there actually is not to place alcohol advertising on the actual field of play itself. And what we see instead is now, Guinness Zero being advertised there. And really the zero, I have to say, whether it's my eyesight or not, but I thought it was certainly fading into the green of the pitch. And it's more that what you're really seeing is a kind of a seamless advertising of Guinness, whether we're saying zero or whether we're saying the alcohol version of it. what your impression when you're watching a match is Guinness. That's you're seeing the brand being very, very heavily advertised right across the match.
And we are not the first country that the situation has arose in, aren't we not, Sheila? I believe that Norway have already dealt with the issue, haven't they?
Yes, so Norway would have a complete ban actually on alcohol advertising, and they have made a very specific thing within their regulations, which says that in relation to zero alcohol products, if they want to be advertised, then they have to have completely different branding from their alcohol, from their parent alcohol company, and that's really making the case very clear that, and it's a recognition really that zero alcohol products which use identical branding to their parent are in effect advertising alcohol.
Okay, Sheila, bearing in mind that the Public Health Alcohol Act came in 4 years ago, can you tell me what you think it will take for the Minister for Health, Stephen Donnelly, to implement the rest of the Act and deal with the issue of alcohol companies advertising their drinks through the side avenue of zero alcohol drinks?
Well, I certainly think that it needs strong public health advocacy to get movement on this. Now, in fairness, we have seen this minister has brought in the minimum unit pricing of alcohol, and there is progress in relation to the labelling of alcohol products, two things of which were included within the Public Health Alcohol Act. But in relation to advertising, this is very slow. It really is very slow. The broadcast watershed is a very important element, of the Alcohol Act. And a second element in relation to advertising is relates to the content of alcohol advertising. So at the moment, when you would see an alcohol ad on TV or whatever, very much what you're sold is a kind of like a myth or a dream, that would go with it. When the restrictions around the content of the alcohol ads are brought into play, that would strip out the myth making, and you would literally have a factual based ad which would tell you the price, where it was made, where you can get it, things like that. Now, I think we're a very long way off seeing that being implemented, given that we're over 4.5 years from the broadcast watershed being legislated for, and we see no sign of it coming. So sometimes you would get a bit, just how much more do we have to, say and keep saying to the minister? But we will keep saying this, and we're not unique in this. Over 70% of the population really strongly want to have restrictions on alcohol advertising brought in, and I think we're seeing other countries are looking to that. Scotland, for example, are doing a consultation on this very question at the moment, and they're looking to see what has been the experience in Ireland, what has worked, what has not worked, where are the delays and things like that. So they will certainly be learning from our experience, and we'll be drawing that, to public health advocates there in their work as well. So we just have to keep going with it. It is frustrating, but it's something that just has to be done. I think sometimes what maybe is missing, when people look at the Public Health Alcohol Act, is that a recognition that it needs to be implemented in, completely. It's not just a bit here and a bit there. It was actually designed to work together as a package. So, we would know things like the labelling information. Actually, when you bring in that type of, warning information on alcohol products, it kind of paves the way for, other restrictions and people understanding the need for restrictions, say for example, around the marketing of it. Likewise, the separation of products in supermarkets really makes the point that this is no ordinary product, that it's not the same as, buying a pint of milk or whatever, that it is different. So there is this need for it to be implemented in full, and we would really say that the marketing is one of the most important elements of it. We know that from looking at the way we have changed in relation to smoking. So it used to be that well over half the population would have smoked, and now we're down to about 16-17%. And one of the principal drivers of that change was the complete ban on tobacco advertising.
Yeah, I know marketing is a huge issue for alcohol advertising and for all companies that want it, whether it's health or ill health. To go back to what you said at the start of the interview, that there hasn't been any movement and over any kind of discussion with the Broadcasting Authority of Ireland with Stephen Donnelly. Um, just thinking,
Well, I will say,
yeah.
just to say, Darren, there has been discussion. I didn't mean to say that there wasn't. There certainly has been discussion. It's just that the last meeting that, there was quite a flurry of meetings that were held, but the last meeting on it was over a year ago, and we would understand from that, well, they've had their discussion. Our question is, why haven't they gone ahead and implemented the ban?
I'm just thinking, I wasn't aware of that, but just thinking to follow on from that, like now could be a good time to kind of lobby him also on the alcohol companies and their non-alcoholic drinks, because there is space there, isn't there? Like.
Absolutely, and we certainly are raising that. I mean, actually, our concern right now would be that if the broadcast watershed was brought in, are we going to see a flurry of zero alcohol product marketing or advertisements, before 9 p.m.?
So now it is a good time over the next few months. I imagine that you hope that the Public Health Alcohol Act will be implemented in full in the lifetime of this government, yeah?
Well, that was the commitment of this government, in the programme for government, was to implement the Alcohol Act. It is government policy to do that. And we would just really question, why wouldn't you just go ahead and do it? Given that the Act was extensively debated, over many years, actually, in the Oireachtas, and there was an awful lot of evidence put forward for reasons for doing this. Given that we have had all the discussions, we have had all the evidence put forward, why would you not actually, swiftly move to implement what is the democratically mandated measures within the Act?
And the Taoiseach, Leo Varadkar and Taoiseach Micheál Martin, they actually have kind of direct experience with the whole process, don't they?
Yeah, well, Leo Varadkar was the minister who introduced the bill back in 2015, and I will say, and Micheál Martin was he was Taoiseach actually as well during the time when MEP was brought in. So both of them are very familiar, with what's there, and we certainly know, Ireland has a good legacy in relation to the smoking ban in the workplace, which Micheál Martin, when he was Minister for Health, brought in. So there is an appreciation at senior government level for the need for public health measures around alcohol. But nonetheless, we're still waiting, and we know that certainly the alcohol industry are continuing to lobby extensively against the introduction of these measures. We can really see this very clearly around labelling at the moment, and we know it would be the case across all of the measures.
Yeah, I won't keep you much longer, Sheila. I was just going to ask you about that because it's no small point what's going on at the moment. I saw Hildegard Knockler, the Minister of State in the Department of Health. She's only appointed the job recently, but like she was saying, I think was at the EU that like they are, and it's been covered in the media, national media recently. There is a lot of kind of work going on because the government, the ministers for health, are kind of up against Italian kind of alcohol and Italian government and other governments as well, aren't they, on the issue of labelling? So that's a huge issue, isn't it?
It is an issue, certainly. But where we're at on this, from an EU regulation point of view, generally speaking, if you introduce a change in labelling, it has to go through an EU process to make sure that other countries are informed about that. And usually within a single market, constructs, you don't have different labels for different countries. However, in the case of health, there is what's called a competency for member states to take on their own measures. And so for Ireland, they made the case to the European Commission, pointing out the issues around alcohol here in Ireland, and the Commission certainly did hear from a number of EU member states about their objections to it, but the Commission didn't find any reason that Ireland shouldn't go ahead with its own particular measures. So in other words, Ireland's measures were proportionate and required for the particular problems that Ireland as a member state was experiencing.
Okay, and I actually just to follow on from that, I interviewed Eamon O'Queeve over a year ago, and there was a Fianna, I can't think of her name, there's a Fianna Fáil senator, Lorraine Clifford Lee, She's a senator. She spoke in the Senate last week. So,
Yes.
is there any news about Oscuelga labels?
Right, so that was debated, at the time when the Public Health Alcohol Act was going through, when it was a bill and when it was going through the Oireachtas, that was brought up. Indeed, Eamon Queeve was the person who brought it up, and it was debated at that stage. But it was decided that the labels on the products wouldn't be in Irish, but if you were, buying alcohol in a pub, that the signs, the notifications that would go up there would also be in Irish as well. So there will be no change to the actual labelling on the alcohol product, but there is that provision when you would be buying it in a pub.
Do you think there could be change? Because, like, as you know, in Ireland we have the Official Languages Act. So, do you think it's possible that at some stage the kind of government could be kind of forced because of pressure to have them also have them bilingually?
No, I don't think so, because it was extensively debated and it was passed, in the Oireachtas at that time. So I don't see a change in that happening.
Okay.